Great. And without further ado, take it away, Angelique.
Okay, I do need permission to share my screen.
Okay.
So I put a
I'll
PowerPoint.
do that. Okay, it's done.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I'm gonna do that and then go ahead and play. Okay, thank you so much for the invitation, Elaine. I'm happy to be with you all today. I know a lot of you, so sorry if this is a little redundant, but I'll try to make it through as quickly as possible. I'm just gonna talk about my career trajectory and what I've worked on and what I'm working on, which I will start here. I was born in Puerto Rico. So I was there for 14 years. I was born and raised there. And this is me in my home in Puerto Rico. I was a very like artsy, crafty kid. But I will say at that point growing up and you know, you were talking about students that got C's. That wasn't me. I was a straight A student. I was very much about school. And I think I was a very good student. But I, you know, growing up, I never considered art as a viable career. I had parents who were very much thinking like, oh, do something that's gonna be lucrative, or you know, they were trying to do the whole be a doctor, be an engineer, blah blah blah. So my parents, my mom and my stepdad and my sister, we moved to Florida when I was 14. So I did high school in Orlando, Florida, and then I went to the University of Florida to do my bachelor's, which, as I was saying originally, I went to study biomedical engineering, which is very different from what I'm doing right now. And I did it for almost through my junior year before I said, oh my God, I hate this. I hate labs. I don't want to be in a lab. And I sort of by chance, I had an art history minor because when I had to do my orientation, they were like, sign up for an elective. And I put in art. And the first thing that came up was art history 101. And so I took that, ended up liking it, became my minor. When I quit on science, it was like, okay, well, I guess my minor is my major right now. With that came a few requirements. When I switched over, I had to take a 3D art class, and I had the option between sculpture and ceramics. And I picked ceramics because I don't like power tools. And so that sent me on a different path altogether. At the same time that I was taking ceramics, sort of that first 101 intro hand building class, I was taking a decorative arts course in the art history department, and there were objects like these in that class. And I believe that class is still taught by Elizabeth Ross. And I just love the class. I love this idea of objects being able to tell so much about an individual or a culture overall. And so that combined with like the process of actually making ceramics, I just fell in love with the medium. And for me, at that point, it was like, there's no coming back. Like, I love clay and it's clay forever. And so when I decided to go to grad school, I said, okay, I need to find a program that's gonna allow me to study ceramics. And so I decided to look for programs that were based about decorative arts, which at the time there were 3 programs. One in Washington, D.C. and 2 in New York. And then I ended up in New York at the Bard Graduate Center. And when I first started there, it's a 2-year program, MA program. And when I first started there, I was focusing more on like 18th century, 17th century European ceramics, like a lot of Sèvres and things like that. But the professor that was teaching those classes left halfway through my time there. And so that sent me into a little bit of a crisis, like, so what do I do now? And at the same time, I went to see this show curated by Sequoia Miller. I believe it was his dissertation at Yale. And he basically put ceramics into the art history canon, the modernist canon. And I thought it was a great show. I thought it was really well done. And that just kind of put me into this whole entirely different path in which I then started focusing on modern and contemporary, mostly American ceramics. And so I became a curator. I'll say I started as an intern at MAD and then became a curatorial assistant and worked my way up. But I wanted to talk about like what I consider to be the role of a curator, which I see it as three parts, which is being a storyteller. I think that's a huge part of what a curator does. And then also being an ally of artists. And then finally, being sort of like a bridge for community building. And then right now, I have a lot of interest, but right now, the core of my interest is this thing I call the aesthetics of optimism, which is a few things that fall under that, which is humor, cuteness, maximalism, and the decorative. And that's not to say I don't like work that doesn't fall under this, because that is not true at all, but this is just my sort of center of gravity at the moment. And then some of my objectives anytime that I'm doing a curatorial project are these, which is I often try to prioritize and amplify the voices and concerns of artists of color, highlight a diversity of means of expression. I like to think of ceramics in the expanded field, so it's not necessarily just about like a final product, but also it can be about the process, or it can be about how to push that work into another realm, whether that be video or performance. Establishing accessible, safe and accessible spaces to discuss current events, politics, whatever's going on. Developing platforms that support artists, and again, community engagement. And so I'm talking about, so I recently, I guess it's been a few months now, but earlier this year, I resigned from my position at the Museum of Arts and Design. I was there for 6 years. I just decided that I wanted to focus my independent career, but I just wanted to show some of the things I worked on while I was there, which in those 6 years, I helped put together more than 20 exhibitions, which it's a lot. I worked on with a lot of different mediums. I worked on solo shows, I worked on group shows, international, national, all different kinds of materials. There's Coy Hooven, Chrysanthemum Forbidden Fruit, this was a really sort of lucky thing. This was the first show I worked on at MAD as a full-time curatorial assistant there. But I actually got to take charge of the show just in such a junior position. It was perfect because I was coming from a background of 18th century porcelain, and then here I go being able to take that into the contemporary world. I did jewelry shows too, worked on this show. I also got to do some of the acquisitions for the collection, and I specifically focus on ceramics. This is some of like the most recent ones. And then while I was there, I got to sort of spearhead the Burke Prize. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a prize. It's $50,000 given to a contemporary artist working in one of the main craft tenants under, I believe it's under 45. That's the cap, age cap. But it was a really wonderful project to get to work on. I got to meet so many young artists in the field, and you really, through the project, you really get to get like a sense of what's going on in the field. So I thought it was a really wonderful project. It also got to help these 3 artists. These are the 3 winners so far, which is amazing. They happen to be artists of color, which was not purposeful, but I'm really glad that it happened that way. And the prize money has done amazing things for them. For some of them, it's been almost just not only life-changing, but life-saving. And so it was really great to be part of a project that could just support artists in a different way that's not just exposure or writing about our work, but rather just like actually putting cold, hard cash in their hands to do what they need to do to survive. And got to put some shows of the finalists, which was really cool. Got to show a lot of really awesome work together. Showing some of those. This is the 2nd year. Ceramics always was very present in these shows. Here's some pictures with some of the artists. You might recognize some of them. And they've gone on to do amazing things. Really, they just have incredible careers. And I am glad I got to be like a little bleep, like bleep in their lives. And then I started doing independent work in 2020, which, you know, not the best timing, but somehow it's worked out. And started with this project at Greenwich House Pottery called Clay is Just Big Paint, which was a solo exhibition of Jennifer Rockland's work. She's an LA-based artist, and here you can see the work. It was really great to be able to do this. The thing with working at a museum is that you have to go through a lot of red tape to get a show to happen. And especially when at a place is understaffed, it takes a lot longer to be able to sort of take autonomy over a project. And so I felt I needed to go outside the institution to sort of exert my own voice and my own interests. And this is how this started. And from that came other opportunities. I did this show Sleight of Hand at the Center for Craft, where I was a curatorial fellow. This also happened in 2020. So the show was supposed to open in June. Of course, that didn't happen. The show, at some point, it felt like it wasn't even going to happen because of everything that was going on, of course, but it got to happen and I was very happy with it. This project is actually a pilot project. I'm working on a massive version of this show right now for Matt, actually. So this show is focused on contemporary artists of color who are using humor in their practice. But right now, what I'm doing, this spans from this idea I've had for years, in which funk ceramics, sort of the legacy of funk ceramics, how important funk ceramics are to the contemporary field of ceramics right now. And so the show that I'm working on right now at MAD is called Funk You Too, and it combines historical funk ceramics with contemporary work. Here's some more images. All these artists are in the show, but there's also a lot of other artists. It's a show with 26 artists, actually. I've gotten to do some other sort of juried shows, open calls. I also got to put together this show for Mindy Solomon Gallery called The Universe Within, which focused on non-binary and women identifying artists of the Black diaspora. We got to take over all three galleries of the show, all three galleries of her space, which was awesome because her gallery is huge. This work by Nina Major. And then some of you might have seen Belonging over at the Crocker earlier this year, which was CNC Annual, which was really cool to put together. I worked with some people, some artists that I'm very familiar with, some that are sort of just, I've watched them grow over the years, or I feel like we've grown together over the years. So it was really lovely to be able to put that together. It was great to work with the Crocker on this show. And also, I would say that was my first NCICA, my first and only NCICA. So it was a wonderful experience to get to do it this way. And then my most recent show is called Fragile Earth, which I don't know if Ashwini's still around. Ashwini's part of that show. This came in collaboration with Grounds for Sculpture and the Color Network, which is this organization that helps in the advancement of artists of color in working in ceramics. 16 artists from all over the country, really kind of different work, exploring the different sort of takes on fragility. And it's a really beautiful show. Sorry, but there's no real installation photos yet. So these are just mostly photos from my phone. Oops. I also have other projects that I'm kind of continuously working on. I write, so I've written things like this. Like I said, cuteness is one of the things that I'm interested in. So I wrote this article for Culture Magazine, which I focus on artists who work in ceramics. And I don't only work with ceramics, but like I said, it's something that I love. So I naturally lean into it. I also do other, like I said, jurying, and I also write a lot of catalog essays for other people's exhibitions. So I've done a lot of that. And then I also have a podcast called Clay and Color with my dear friend and artist, Alex Anderson. And we are focusing on the first 2 seasons are focused on the aesthetics of optimism, which I mentioned before, sort of young artists or artists who are young at heart who work in those aesthetics of optimism. And we'll see if there's a season 3. Well, I'll announce it here. There's a season 2. It's coming. It's happening. But we'll see what the theme might be for season 3. But season 2 is coming. It's happening. And like I said, upcoming project Funky 2 opens March 18, 2023 at the Museum of Arts and Design in New York. The show will be accompanied by a catalog. And right now I'm in the process of working on my catalog essay. It has been consuming all my summer hours. My house is a mess because I'm just working. But yeah, that's the gist of it. And you can let me know if you have any questions.
That's great. Wow. I know you went through it very quickly, but that's amazing.
If you want to look at any pictures, let me know. I can also just stop sharing and we can just talk. We can talk about whatever you want to talk.
Is there anything that anyone wants to see a little bit closer here?
Where do you find the clay and color? How do you find that?
So anywhere where you get your podcast. So it could be, if you have an iPhone, there's actually an app that's just called Podcast. And if you search in there, it will just come up. If you use Spotify, you can also just put clay and color and it will also just come right up. And I think maybe there's like a Google version, like a Google Play or something like that, that also has the podcast. But yeah, it's pretty accessible wherever you get your podcasts, typically. Which I'll say season 1 and every season will be 12 episodes. And so there's 12 episodes already available.
So you're still doing a lot of work for MAD, it sounds like. I mean, you're just doing it then as an independent curator.
Exactly. So part of my reasoning for leaving, there was a lot of reasons, but one of them was that I felt I needed time to devote specifically to this project, which is a project that's kind of been a long time coming for me. It's a project that I've been pitching for years and, finally it's happening. But, as long as you're in the institution, there's always going to be 20 other projects. And so I just wanted to have sort of dictate how I spend my time on the project. And that was part of the reason. But yeah, part of the reason why this is even happening is because Elisa Author, who's the chief curator now, at the time when I did my fellowship at the Center for Craft, she wasn't the chief curator, she had a different position, but she really encouraged me to apply for that fellowship and kind of putting that pilot version out a different way than allowed me to get the attention that I needed to then get it onto the calendar, which is not that it's kind of messed up that it has to happen that way, but sometimes that is how it works. You kind of have to go outside before you can bring it back inside. It feels, at the same time, it just feels like a good bookend to my time at MAD. And so I feel like there's a lot of changes happening at MAD, just in terms of the staff, and it's a lot of people are leaving and new people are coming in. So it just feels like a good time to be here's this baby that I've been working on, and then, move on.
Yeah. Other questions?
We didn't really talk about anything.
Because I have more questions. I was privileged to be the editor and proofreader on the NCECA publications this year, and last 2 years exactly, but so I was fascinated by your resources and the stories of the artists in Belonging. I was thrilled to be able to see the exhibition as well. But did you put out a call for that at all, or was it just your own knowledge of these people? Because the Belonging spanned the non-binary, the immigration issues, etc. It was such a wonderful expanse of artists, and I'm wondering what resources you used.
So the way that it works for NCICA, I could invite 5 artists, and then the rest of the artists came from an open call. And I looked through a lot of applications to get to the rest of the group, but I was fortunate enough that there was a lot of great work in that open call to sort of fill in so the 5 artists that I picked, I sort of hit different categories that I wanted to make sure were represented sort of as storylines. But I think it was also partly is because of who I am and like sort of I guess in a sense, the reputation that I have in the field or what I'm interested in. It attracted a certain group of artists to apply, and the stories just fit perfectly. It was really beautiful how I was able to sort of make these groupings of stories throughout this space. I was very happy with the work that I got to show.
Yeah, it was a wonderful exhibition, and I think your essay and the essays, the brief bios of each of the artists were also pretty incredible. Anna, you were saying something here. Look forward to that issue. Oh, the September issue of, okay.
Jessica I just thought it would be nice to respond to Jessica.
I'm saying hi, Jessica. We've together one. Hi.
Yeah.
That's all. Nothing. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I had to jump in about 15
but that's
minutes
okay.
late.
No, that's great. That's fine. And I'm also curious, and I know that I had just given your name to Linda Lighton for something, but I'm also curious about, there are a lot of underrepresented communities, in addition to the people of color, the binary, etc. There are a lot of underrepresented, and I'm wondering if you get into writing for political issues, for feminist issues, etc.
Yeah, totally. Definitely. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the artists I work with, I feel like somebody who I've been championing for a while, and he has been in a lot of my shows, Salvador Jimenez Flores. He's always talking about issues of immigration. He's talking about sort of the systemic issues going on in the United States when it comes to people of color. I write a lot about his work. But yeah, like in this new project that I'm working on in the catalog, we run through the gamut in a sense. There's issues of immigration, there's feminist issues, there's also issues of race. I definitely touch upon all of that. I think I lean more towards subversive work when it comes to political topics. But yeah, I absolutely do. I think they're a huge part of what the field is today. And I'm personally very narrative driven. Like while there's really beautiful work out there, a lot of the time need more than that. Like it's like, yeah, great work, but I kind of also need a narrative to go with it.
Yeah. Okay, other questions? Come on, I know you're not shy.
Elaine, I have a question.
Yes, Joe.
Angelique, I just wanted to applaud you, first of all, for making the leap from museum environment to an independent curator.
Thank you. It's not easy for sure.
Yeah, it's not an easy hill to climb, but it is a rewarding one. But I wondered if you have any plans, or immediate or future, to concentrate on ceramic artists from Puerto Rico. Since we are talking about underrepresented populations, certainly Puerto Rico is not represented well enough.
Correct. Yeah.
It's part of the Americas, but it is a territory. And, traveling a show throughout the United States of Puerto Rican art would be very beneficial to increase the visibility.
Yeah, so I think, right now I'm just trying to make it through like hump of this catalog. But yes, I think I'm particularly interested in putting together a Caribbean show. I don't know that there's that I obviously know that there's ceramic artists in Puerto Rico, and I know some of them, but I think I want to make it a little more expansive and just make it a Caribbean show. But I definitely want to do that. I just got the opportunity to mentor the MFA graduating class of RISD of the ceramics department, which was only 2 students, but one of them is Puerto Rican. So it was really great to connect that way. And we've had that conversation often of like, yeah, we don't see the Caribbean represented that often. And I'd say, especially here in the West Coast, I barely see anybody who like might look like me. I think a lot of people, for example, assume that I don't even know Spanish and they talk Spanish around me. And it's because I don't look like most of the like Latino population that is in LA. There's just not as much Caribbean representation here, but yes, I would 100% love that. I would also love to at some point, like maybe through a grant or something, to be able to just actually go to Puerto Rico and spend some time there with the communities that are working with clay. I know specifically there's one community who's like actually going and like digging for the clay and preparing it and then making work, a lot of it inspired by indigenous ceramics of Puerto Rico. So I'd love the opportunity to actually go spend time with them, but I do need some funding to do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
More questions? Anna?
And you answered a little bit of that as to what you're looking for in the future, but we're still just talking like, maybe 3, 4, 5 years or something. But where do you see yourself headed even further in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think another thing that I want to do once this sort of hump is, I get over this hump and I'm on the other side, is really think about whether my next step is to basically prepare a bunch of proposals and try to pitch them out to people, or if I just want to get more serious about maybe opening a gallery. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm between sort of those 2 spaces. Like I was saying to Joe, independent work is hard. It takes a lot of discipline. It's like, I think maybe everybody experienced that with the working at home. Like it's like getting up and like getting to work. Sometimes it's a little harder when you're at home. Like I have all these plans, for example, and like I just get distracted easily. So it takes a lot of work to just like be at home. And I don't know that I ever want to go back to an institution. There's just a lot of issues in institutions, and also I just don't know that like it serves me anymore. And so that's why I think that I'm between like figuring out how to make independent work more viable, or just going and like building my own space to like be able to put on the shows that I want to put on and support artists that way.
Are you still a maker, Angelik?
I no, I am like, I'm still like very artsy, crafty, but like I've never considered myself an artist, and not necessarily like a maker in the sense like I just don't feel like I have a story to tell when it comes to making. Like I just feel like I make things for the sake of making things, and I'd rather tell stories through other people's work. But yeah, no, I'm also dying to get over this so I can pick up my bag of clay and at least make some pots for my plants.
Yeah. I know so many people who go through MFA programs and then have to write a thesis who can't do both at the same time.
Well, I got an MA, so it was just the writing, but it was a weird thesis, actually. It's a thesis that I've never looked at again, and I probably never will, because the way that it works at the BGC, at the Bar Graduate Center, is that you have to write, basically, you take a paper from your first year and then you expand on it. That's how they do their thesis. And if you remember, my first year was starkly different from my second year. So my thesis ended up being about the motif of the peacock in decorative arts in France in the 18th century, which is like, you know, like has nothing to do with anything that I'm doing right now. And it was like grueling to write that paper at a time when I was completely interested in something else. And that's not to say that I don't love 18th century stuff. I also want to put on a Rococo show at some point from a contemporary perspective. So those tastes still linger around. But yeah, yes, you had to write a long paper. And it took me actually a while to get back to making after I left UF, because in New York, there's not as much space to be able, you know, to make stuff. And the only way I could do it was by going to like the YMCA and taking classes, but also museum jobs don't pay that well. Classes are kind of expensive. So it took me a while to be able to afford to take a class, which was really nice to be able to take one again. I have the stuff that I made all over the house. And then now I just sit in my backyard and make stuff and then get it fired somewhere.
Yeah.
When I can find a kiln.
Angelique?
Robert, go ahead.
Hi.
Yeah, just let me get this, put that noise in the background. Yeah, you know, you were talking about working in sculpture. Are you getting back into the studio or not? And I realized over many years, I sort of moved back and forth between administration and the studio. And I never really thought of administration as much other than a large sculpture, you know, and in a sense, because it was a different level of interactivity with the parts or different types of things. But it really, I think they inform each other. And I think that's probably true for your work as well.
That's true. And I mean, my job takes a lot of administration. Like half of my job is just sending emails all day long.
Yeah,
so there's
sure.
a lot of that. But I honestly dream of the day in which maybe I don't have to send those emails, in which maybe somebody can send those emails for me. but no, it's a lot of emails, and it's part of it. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't get about curating. I think people just think of like the fun part of it, like, oh, you're picking objects and you're deciding where they go, which is like, yeah, sure, there's that, but there's so much admin work that goes on behind the scenes. And yeah, that's rarely spoken about.
But do you see the curatorial project itself and the installation of the exhibition as the sculptural output of your own work?
Yeah, I think it's like, it's my practice. Just like you know, a maker, their practice is making an object, for example. My sort of final product is that exhibition. That's my practice.
Yeah, I agree.
Are you, when you curated an exhibition, is it always you who does the catalog essay? Or do you do one as a curator always and then have others go right as well?
Most of the shows I've done have had a catalog, but yeah, like usually, I mean, I've always written the exhibition essay. This upcoming catalog will have 3 essays, one by me, one by Garth Johnson, and one by Andres Payan Estrada from Craft Contemporary. So it will have other voices in there too. But right now, I just have to figure out my essay. It's basically a dissertation at this point. And I have to figure out how to cut it down. And this is where the editing will come in and hopefully save the day.
Cool.
Did somebody else have it? Anna, you have another question?
You mentioned, Angelique, you mentioned the editing part of it. Do you have someone that edits your work or that you like to have edit your work, you know, that you feel comfortable with?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Some projects come with prescribed copy editors or editors. So, you know, I work with them, but the person I think the longest that I worked with was this person I found. When I first started at MAD, there was one copy editor I did really dislike the way he edited. So I made it my mission to find a copy editor I liked. And I did, I found one. And she's still the copy editor for MAD. So when I'm working on independent projects that there's no copy editor, I usually go to her. Her name is Christine Kearns. Yeah, I feel like she gets me. So usually I work with her. But for example, this upcoming catalog, the copy editing will be done by the publishers. So that will be a different experience that I haven't had before. So we'll see how that goes.
Interesting.
Oh, Joe is asking about graphics. I do not have graphic skills. I've been meaning to get my friend to work on my website and just make it cooler, but I haven't gotten around to it. But yeah, no, I have zero graphic skills. I don't know how to build a website at all.
Well, I have to say that I thought your website was really interesting. Even your presentation is very updated. I mean, I hate to say that some of my presentations must date me because I don't have those cool graphics that you use. So I'm going to have to learn those skills.
Well, I think I do have a I feel very specific aesthetic sense. So I tried, even with the limited skills I have, to bring that to everything I do.
Well, I like the word limited, because that means that everybody can, can try it. It's
No,
not
and
so.
I have what do have Squarespace. They have great templates that you can use and customize to make your website look somewhat designed. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Okay, good to know. Thank you, Angelik.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Let's share resources.
Sure, of course. Maybe eventually I'll get like a logo or something. But
Yeah, there
for
you
now,
go.
it's like I need business cards, for example, which is I don't have because I don't know what to put on them or what I want them to look like, but I really need them.
I have a great designer if you want her name. She's doing our catalog right now for the American Museum of Ceramic Art, and she's someone I've worked with at LACMA for 25 years.
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
When I was there and she was there, and she will do you right.
Email me her contact, please.
I will put it, I'll email you afterwards.
I was telling Lane I have to stop by Mocha again to see. I want to see the bloops at the vault.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right. Alina Hayes.
Yeah, who
And
was in my Encika show.
Oh, great. And please see the other two shows. Elaine's is one of them.
I saw that one. I saw that one already. Because I went to see a Sweeney's Vault show and got a tour of the studios and everything, which was really awesome. And I have to say, hi, Ashwini. I have to say, I do love being in LA a lot just because of the long history of ceramics in California. I always felt like an alien in New York being pro clay when everybody was just like most people that I know in New York in the art world, they weren't really into it. They're more into it now, as most of the world seems to be. But yeah, it's really wonderful to be here where there's like institutions that really dedicate themselves to clay, and just like a general, like in a sense, like nonchalance to like, yeah, we make stuff with clay. And so I really like LA for that reason. Jessica.
Hey, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
Good. So I had a quick question. You may have gone over this, and I apologize, in the 15 minutes before I could join on. I was wondering if you discussed the way that you do the research for the writing that you're doing. So obviously, researching who you're going to put into a show is one sort of skill set. But if you talk a little bit about, when you're sitting down to write a catalog essay, how you go about doing that research, what is your methodology? And then a second question would be whether you'd thought about mentoring other young curators and people who are interested in writing.
Okay, so first one, it's a little bit of a rabbit hole thing. It depends on what the topic might be. I feel like it always starts with sort of like a Google search, like what kind of comes up when you do that. But yeah, I also look at just something like WorldCat, or if you have access to a really good like school library. Like I really missed the library at the BGC. Like it was so amazing to have access to that library. But things like that, like in which you could just kind of put a query and it will give you everything that comes up. But I feel like things just come up, like one thing leads to another. Like you start with one book, and as you're reading, you start seeing the footnotes, and that will lead you in all kinds of directions. For the book that I'm working on right now, which is something you're familiar with, it's the Funk show, the Funk Ceramics show. Partly it was just finding sort of key books and then from those key books, finding other books. But also I went to archives. I went to the Archives of American Art, which when you're going through archival material, that also sends you into like all these different directions. And I feel like you need years and years to maybe see everything, but I tried to get as much as I can in one place. I kind of section it off by just like topics and things like that. And I go little by little, like I'll try to read everything and highlight everything that I think would be useful. And then I start writing. And then what I'm gonna do with this essay is that when I finish, hopefully this Saturday, I'm gonna take a week to just go back and read absolutely everything, to add all my footnotes, and then also just to reread everything to make sure that if there was a quote that I had highlighted that somehow I didn't put in the essay that I missed somehow, make sure that I have everything in there. And then the other question was about mentoring. I mentored a young woman. Her name is Gerald Brown. I think she's based in Philadelphia, and that came through the Color Network. They have a mentorship program, and they asked me to be the inaugural mentor, so I did that, which was great. I will say though that when it comes to writing, I think it takes years to get it down. So somebody who doesn't come, I feel like I'm grateful for my training in grad school. Like I had to write so many papers that you really start developing those writing skills. If you're coming from a background in which you have done very little writing, it can be really difficult to get down like what you need to do to write like a story that makes sense and is accessible, like people can read it and you're getting across what you're trying to say. So I think it's like a long-term project, and I'd be open to it in the future, but it does take a lot of work to sort of mentor somebody, I feel, when it comes to writing. But I have done it.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
More questions?
A picture of
Anything in her talk, any exhibitions you'd like to see her elaborate on, etc.?
No, I think that's great.
I have a question
Nancy?
about, so many of the things that you said, Angelique, resonate with me as an independent curator and writer, and the constraints that larger art organizations can put on you. And it's very hard to advance interests, curatorial interests. And I've been thinking along these lines too, that these independent exhibition spaces are so crucial because they're more nimble and they're more open. And I'd like to hear more. You mentioned that that's a consideration that you're kind of pondering, and I'd like to hear more about that aspect of your work.
Yeah, for sure. I think more alternative spaces and even more commercial spaces have the ability to react a lot quicker. They're able to just say, oh, this is what's important right now. Let's put a show together right now. And curatorial work has to do a lot with being adaptable and flexible. We make a lot of compromises regardless of where or like for who we're curating. But I think, yeah, the kind of space you're in really dictates how you get to put a show on. And yeah, that's like how with this show with Funky too, like I said, I've been pitching this show for a long time. And so really for me, this show almost, it's like, I'm glad it's happening, but also like in the back of my mind, I'm like, ugh, it's late now. Like, and museums, I feel, are sometimes late.
Yeah. Because
it takes so long to make something happen. Like, like it's like, which I'll say this, I don't mind. Jeffrey Deitch put on in New York, put on the show called Clay Pop, which basically has most of the artists that I have in the show, which are artists that I've been putting information out there about this show for years. And in a sense, this is like a culmination of a multi layered project.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, there is this frustration when you have been saying this for so long, and all of a sudden somebody, because they have that adaptability and flexibility, they can just boom, did it.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, museums honestly are very late sometimes. And it's just all the red tape, of course, a lot of it has to do with funding, but there's also many other reasons why things happen or don't happen.
Yes.
So yeah, no, that's why I'm considering having my own space in which, I get to sort of decide what is important right now and just put it together.
That's inspiring. Really, it's nice to hear that. I mean, the challenge is then the funding of that, right? If
Always
only-
funding is
yeah.
always a challenge.
Right. To the level of expertise and quality that you want to do it. So, yeah. So, well,
But sorry, I was gonna say that's also another thing. Because here in LA specifically, it happens in New York too, but in LA specifically, people are throwing shows together in all kinds of spaces.
Yeah.
Like garages and random rooms and their backyard and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they are a lot, again, they just make it happen. They're like, we want to make this happen, so this is what we're gonna do. And in the museum also, there's all this registrar work, which is yes, we love registrars, they protect artwork. Yes, we want the work to be safe. But yeah, but sometimes it's also oh my God, really? We need to go through all of this. And then with the funding, all the money goes to making all these things so that the work is extra protected. And it's oh my God, okay. So yeah.
Angelique, there's a big difference between catalog essay writing and independent reviews. Do you do any of the second thing? Do you do any independent reviews of exhibition or of?
Why do you have these lights on and you're not using?
I have done reviews. I'm not constantly reviewing exhibitions. I feel to have sort of a steady stream of reviewing, you kind of have to establish a relationship with whatever publisher it is, whether it's Hyperallergic, Art Forum. You need to have that contact that they know to go to you. And I haven't made those contacts yet. So, but I have done some reviews. I reviewed the Whitney's craft show, for example, for the Journal of Modern Craft. So I have. I mean, I think I'd like to do that at some point, but that is also a job that sort of means that you have to work really quickly, which I can. But again, right now I'm trying to take it a little bit easier. Well, not easier because it's not easy, but slower, and just focus on less things at a time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but it is definitely very different writing, because even with a catalog, I say, yeah, you want to be critical. There's some critical thinking to what you are writing, but you're way more critical when it comes to a review because you're trying to give a very precise opinion of what is there.
Right. Okay, more questions. Good. Well, I want to mention thank you to Anna Kalori Holcomb for suggesting you today, Angelique.
I'm very proud because, of course, she's a UF alum. And
Yeah.
so she always holds a special place in my heart.
That's great. That's really good.
Yeah, thank you,
Always
Angelique.
glad to hear
Great.
that.
Of course.
Yeah.
It was nice chatting with you all. And you have
Thank
my
you very
contact.
much for the
Thank
good
you.
work. Yeah.
You have my contact. So if you want to ask something else, want to chat or whatever else, you can contact me. I'm only an
That's
email
great.
away.
That's great. And thank you so much for being here with us. Joe, did you have
Cool.
something else you wanted to ask? I see
You
you.
know, sorry, I just wanted to say that it's so nice to have a fellowship with other curators in our city because that doesn't always happen. And, you know, maybe we can do a collaborative project somewhere down the line. And this is my artist friend, Rebecca Niederlander, who just had a show at the Band of Vices Gallery, just came down and had a show at the Landing. So Angelique, there are other non-clay materials that we are all interested in too, although we are favored for ceramics, I'd have
We
to
have
say.
a soft spot for the clay. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, of course.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll be in touch about what we're going to do next month. And I appreciate everyone being here. And we'll just go ahead and say goodbye then if we're finished.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Cool.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you
Angela.
both.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Elaine.
Uh-huh.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye, Rita.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was good.
Yeah, she did a good job.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was interesting. I mean, I think particularly I'm really interested in that, you know, it is different to be writing a catalog essay, whether you've curated the show or not. You know, like the articles I wrote for the Bray,
Mhm.
they don't want you to criticize. They don't want you to be at all negative, you know, because you're being paid.
Yeah, so that sets up, yeah, that's the
Sets up a
problem,
whole
that, right,
different
yeah.
dynamic.
Yeah.
So
when
huh?
you're headed out pretty soon, aren't you? Are you going, when's your
Friday,
trip?
tomorrow. I'm
Oh,
going to
cool, that's
Michigan.
a good
I
time.
know. So I went in yesterday and tried to register, and
Uh-oh.
it's just a spinning wheel. It's still that way today.
So somebody mentioned that I use Safari and I guess it doesn't like Safari.
Oh, okay,
So
that's
try,
right.
you
Somebody
know,
did mention
try,
that. I can
um,
try yeah,
Chrome or that other, what's the other one? I use sometimes? Firefox, yeah.
Yeah, I'll try.
I hate when that happens because, you know, Safari, if you have a Mac, that's what you
That's
typically
what you
use.
use.
And
Yeah.
so when these design people that, you know, these engineers that put these things together and they completely discount it. I mean, we had a tech person at UF. I mean, we had really good tech help in our college, and but they hired this guy who was really good, but he hated Macs. And more of us were getting Macs.
Yeah.
And he just really, you know, luckily there was another person, like the guy who was actually kind of the head of the area, and he was a good friend, so I could always get in touch with him. But it would just drive me nuts because I didn't want him down in my office because I could tell, like he didn't, it's not like he didn't like me. He just didn't want to have anything to do with Macs, you know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So that drives me a little crazy, but try that. I didn't register yet. I'm waiting till the very last minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
talked to Mark yesterday.
oh, Mark Luthold?
Yeah, you
Oh,
know,
no.
well, it's okay. I mean, you know, we've known each other for a long time, so
Yeah.
you just have to take everything with the kind of grain of salt.
I
sort of
know.
thing.
I
But he, you know, he definitely wants to be supportive of what you do. He absolutely detests Judy, and I don't think Judy has been nice to him. I know Joe hates him. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a bunch of that kind of
I
stuff.
know.
And it's just big egos bouncing back and forth here. He'll claim that they have big egos, but I think his is pretty big too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think he'll you know, he's very upset about like how Jacques manipulates all this stuff in China, you know, to his benefit.
Yeah.
So